Well, hello, it's Jody from Life by Design, and we have a special treat for you today as we assemble our adorable little penguin here. So he is just so cute. He basically holds candy, and then he's also a card. He stands up, and then you can open the little slot and take your candy out. So we're going to go over how to make this in just a minute. I want to show you how he stands up. So he has this little card stand. Hopefully you can see this in the camera that he stands up nicely. So this is actually perfect for somebody who wants to not just give a gift with a flat card, but maybe give it to a colleague and they can sit it on their desk and look at it, and just smile every time they see it with their favorite candy inside. So let's get started putting this together, and I want to show you how to assemble it. But first you're going to need a few things, some tools and some supplies. After you cut everything out, you're going to need the body and his little feet here. This is the opening mechanism. So we're going to go over that. Here is the base that kind of attaches it all together. Here's his background, and I already put this together, but I will show you what to do here. These are the lights that go around him, or you could put it on his head and he could be tangled in it. You could do like multiple, different lights there, but this is super cute as well. This is the card. Now this one I used a little thicker cardstock. This is more like 100-pound cardstock, so I do recommend a thicker cardstock for if you're going to use the base. This is optional, but I'm going to show you how to put that on, okay? And you'll need a few supplies here. So first of all, you'll need a scraper tool, basically just to fold and get some crisp edges on the score lines here. You're going to need some liquid glue. You're going to need a half ornament ball, and this is basically 2 halves. I used the other one on his belly, so I'll show you in a second how they go together. And you're going to need a brad, and the brad is going to go in this little hole there to put the opening mechanism open. And what is a brad? It's called a brad fastener, and it's basically holds pieces of paper together, and this little, it's hard to see, I'll try and zoom in, but the little pointed edge folds open so that it clips onto the paper. Okay, so we'll need a brad for that. I'm going to use a black one, but you can see there's all different colors. And last but not least, to put the bulb on, then hot glue works the best. And I'm not a fan of hot glue, but it probably works the best for this section. All right, let's get started. I'm going to clean up some of this area. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I am back, and before we actually get started putting our opening mechanism together, I did want to show you the plastic ornament ball, and that's how you'll find it listed. So you can find it in any big box craft store or online on Amazon, and it's basically 2 pieces that get put together, and it has the hole for the ornament at the top. We're only going to use half, and I do have the size. It's like 3.15 inches. I have that listed on the instruction sheet. All right, so what you see here, and I actually started putting this together, you're going to get 3 or 4 pieces of these black just pieces of paper, and we're going to glue them together. And again, I already started it, but I left this one so that you can see what I'm doing. And this is basically going to give it make it more sturdy and firm. So I'm just going to glue all over this and let this sit and dry. And that's why I started doing it earlier. I was like, oh, let me get started getting this working, because you don't want this to still be wet while you're trying to move it, because it'll end up tearing. It really has to sit and dry. So when you put it together, you just want to line up that hole, and it should be even on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way you line it up. just make sure that you can see that hole on the inside so you can get a brad through it. All right, the second thing we're going to do is you have 2 of these, and these are exactly the same. It doesn't matter which way you put them. And we're going to do the same thing, glue it. And this is just to give it a little more firmness. This is 65-pound cardstock. So I want a little bit, I want this opening a little sturdy. So when I push it, it's not going to rip. All right. So I'm just really gluing the edges, especially so that you can get, so that it really locks in and you don't have any weak areas that will start to peel open over time. So I want to get all of this area and just miss that hole. And again, it doesn't matter which way you have it laying, you just want to line up the holes. So this is a little trickier because I'm not lining it up from the edges. I'm lining it up by that center hole there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is attach the black piece to this, and we're going to do it a little different. We're going to actually put the gadget standing up. All right, we're not going to add the brad yet because we want it to dry. So we're going to glue the whole half of the area from the circle on, okay? And it's going to stick up like this. This way, when you turn it, all you have to do is put your finger in here and it will turn, okay? But you want to wait until it's totally, completely dry before you start trying to move it around, or else it will rip. Okay, and I'm putting a lot of glue on this because I really want it to stay in place. And once again, I'm going to line up that hole. So I'm just going to hold it there for a second, and we're just going to lay this off to the side and let it dry. So the next thing we're going to do is put the body together. So this does go a certain way. I have it made so that the little tuft of the hair faces to the left. So if you decide that you're going to do it this way, just make sure every other piece is facing the correct direction, all right? But I'm going to keep it with the tuft going left. Now, the first thing you want to do, my first rule in putting together paper images and gluing them together, is make sure they're on the correct side and that they fit together nicely. Then flip it over and add your glue. The second thing is when you're gluing something, look at your 2 pieces and see which one has more cutouts. So definitely it's this one. So this is the one I want to put the glue on, because if I get happy with my glue and I end up putting glue all over the arms, it's going to show through. So always put glue on the area that has has the more of the cutouts. One other thing I want to do is fold up his little feet, and I'm going to do that before I add the glue. And I'm going to use the scraper tool for this because I want to put a little bit of a curve in this. So I'm going to do it gently and then just bend that. And that way I also know not to glue this area. So let me do this foot, and I'm just using the corner of my scraper tool to kind of like push in as I lift that foot up. And this, I'm going to do the same thing with the nose. And the nose is a little tricky as well because you can do it straight up, but the nose is going to have to fit around the ball. So we want to make sure that it's rounded because the ball is rounded. Okay, so I'm going to go slow and then just kind of lift up a little and press this. There we go. And then we can test this if you want. Now this doesn't fit. It's not meant to, because this is going to fit around it, and when they're glued together down on the bottom, it will press nicely there. So we just want to get it folded enough so that it doesn't tear when it goes in there. All right. Okay. So all right. So I'm going to flip him over. And I don't want to glue the beak, and I don't want to glue his feet. I just want to glue all the other areas. So I'm going to start with his hands, get the tuft of his hair around his eyes, this beak area. These are the weaker areas, so you want to make sure you add enough glue here, but don't overdo it to where it globs all over the place. All right. So I put quite a bit of glue on here, but I really want this to stick. So I'm going to line up, I'm going to put it to the side because I work better that way. I'm going to line up the tuft of the hair. And if I get that tuft of the hair in place, the rest should fall right into place. And then just make sure that his arms are in place and that he's looking good. And then I'll commit to his eyes and the rest of him. And he does fit perfectly together. So like if you turn him over, you should not see any black. If you have any glue that has come out of any areas, you can always take something a little sharper and then just wipe that up. The glue I'm using is called Art Glitter. There is no glitter in it, but it does dry clear. It comes out in the perfect consistency, and it's a really great glue to work with. There's a number of good glues out there. I would stay away from tacky glues, but other than that, we're good to go. Next, we're going to put on his beak and his little footsies. With the footsies, these do go in a specific direction. So first thing first, check and make sure you're putting them in the correct direction so they do fit right on his feet. The beak, it is supposed to have the black sticking out below it. That's giving the appearance that his mouth is open. So, and it was made for it to be open. It's just when it's pushed against that ball, it does not want to cooperate and it kind of flattens it out. But when I do this, I'm going to try and open his mouth a little and manipulate it. And I did that with the sample there. So I'm only going to put glue on this bottom edge. And then I'm just going to manipulate and curl the paper a little bit and bend it so that it does stay open. But let me get this one down. All right, and I'm gonna let it dry before I start trying to open his mouth and play with the paper because it will rip. All right, let's get his feet on. Oops, let me make sure it's going in the right direction. All right, with little items like this, you can use your glue to pick it up as like a small piece of paper picker-upper. All right, he's super cute now. Isn't that adorable? We're going to set him aside and start putting the body together, or the base together. This was the body, and add the mechanism to that. Before we do that, I'm going to glue this gasket. Now, what the gasket is for is to go inside of here, and it's going to get glued together, and then this will be attached to the body. So I want the gasket to dry a little bit before I start adding it. So let's put this together. And it does go a specific way, so you do want to check the direction and just make sure when you're looking at it that it does look correct. You know, again, some of these are hand drawn, even though the circle may be perfect on the inside, on the outside is hand drawn. So they don't always, even though you try, they don't always line up perfectly. So let's just get our glue on here. All right, and we're gonna set this aside and let it dry for a little bit. Okay, now, you're gonna see you have 3 pieces here. One of them has the half circle with a hole in it, one of them does not. These are going to hold your opening mechanism and hide the brad fastener. Then they will be attached to the back of the penguin. And then the full circle piece will be the one that sandwiches the opening mechanism to hold it in place. So that will be the piece that goes on the very back. Now, in the end, they'll both be facing the opposite direction when putting together. All right, let's get started. Now, the first thing we want to do is attach this to our middle piece using that brad. So let's grab our brad, and I have to say, when we put this on, I'm using a black so it blends in. You can use whatever color you want. When we put this on, we want to get the brad tight, but we want to make sure that we do not add any glue to this whatsoever. So I'm just going to first put this inside, and then when I can see the brad coming through, then I'm going to fiddle it through here. So hopefully you can see this, that it's coming through both ends. And then what we're going to do, again, it has 2 pieces of metal, and we're going to, I got glue on my finger. All right, so what we're going to do is split that metal in half. So what I'm trying to do is get my fingernails between the 2 metal pieces and then split it. So, and we're going to make it stay flat and nice and tight, because what this is going to do now, I can take my finger and then go back and forth. It's going to make it much easier to open and close. If you want to enlarge this and make it go from top to bottom, that's also another option to make it really, really super strong, and I might do that on a future one, but that's for another video. Anyway, next thing, now that we have this together, we're going to glue this guy on the front. And why are we doing that, you ask? Because when we put this together, and I'll just kind of do a little mock here, when we put this together, we don't want that piece of the brad being seen through the belly and it hitting the candy and all that. So we're going to put this over to protect it and to look better. And it's also going to thicken this paper up. All right. Now, it doesn't matter what you glue on here because the mechanism is on the other side. So we can glue all over this because these are the same exact piece and they're going to go right on top. Okay. Now we're ready to flip this over. Let me move them out of the way. I'm going to line this up with the tuft of the hair. And I did put a little extra glue up there by accident. Let me make sure that this lines up properly. And I do want it to stay straight for now so that that brad does not move. Okay, and again, it's not touching the wheel, okay? No glue is touching the wheel. All right, the next thing we're going to do is add glue to the outside of this. So we want to be really careful. This is the most intricate part of this, and none of this is intricate, but the purpose of this is not to get any glue near here. So I'm going to actually use my fine tip, and I'm going to start by putting some glue outside of here just to kind of guide you and give you an idea of where the glue should and should not go. Nothing is going to go around that wheel, okay? And the closer you get, the more smashed it's going to be and tighter. And I really want this wheel to move nicely. So I'm going to seal the bottom, but I don't want any glue getting too close to here, okay? And then the rest of the glue is going to go around the outside of the body. Now, before I put this on, I'm just going to give the wheel a little turn just to make sure nothing is touching it and that it can still turn. Beautiful. Okay, now we're going to take this and put it right on top. I'm going to again match it up with the tuft of the hair. All right, so I'm just sealing around it. I'm going to give it a second before I turn it. But it's sort of like putting a ring around here. Now, if you wanted, you could even fit a gasket on the inside to give a little room to kind of uplift it, to give it wiggle room to turn. I found that you don't really need it because you can see it's turning as long as you don't glue too close, all right? And this is working fine. And you can see. And if you feel it, you can see I'm easily turning this. And that's with everything sealed. So this is going to be good. This is perfect. And you can't see anything on this. Will be the inside, and you're not going to be able to see anything. He's going to have a little white belly. All right, we're going to put together our little penguin and the little bubble. So the first thing we want to do is add this to here. And I'm going to do this by adding some glue right on here, okay? Now I want to get this, I'm going to do this right, so this is going to fit down at the bottom, so I want to get the gasket on in the right direction. I want you to see what I'm talking about. When you put this on, and I'll do it this way, the reason it's shaped the way it is because the bottom of the gasket should touch the bottom of the penguin, and that's how you're going to be able to line it up and know where exactly this sits, so that there's no guessing games. This is a foolproof. So if I just had it all the same width going all the way around, you're not going to know exactly which direction, or, you know, should I put the ball here, you know, where exactly do I glue it? This is foolproof. It's going to show you exactly where to put it. Now, I like to put the little ornament tag on the bottom, because if I put it up here, even though it would be hidden, this is such a weak area that it tends to kind of lift it up and it could tear. So my recommendation is put the ball between his little feetsies at the bottom. So I'm going to line this up as well. So this is where we're going to need the glue gun. So I'm going to bring the glue gun in here, and I just want to get this lined up. And once again, I'll use this one as a guide because I could see it better how even it is. Okay. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add a little glue down here just to get it set. And it's going to sit on it. Okay. And then once I have that in place, now I can start to add glue around here and attach this. Okay. So the glue, we don't want the glue seen on the inside for the candy and all. So we're going to put the glue on the outside of the cage. And I'm calling it a cage, I don't know why. Outside of the ball, and then just line this up. All right. So I'm going to go slow. And I'm just putting it slowly around here. It's going to seal it just as if it's a gasket. Now I really like this particular glue gun because it has a thin nozzle and it allows me to put this on nice and thin. Some of the glue guns out there, many that I have a thicker nozzle and they're a low temp. This is a little high temperature. It says high temp on here. And it has a really small nozzle. So it is good to invest in just to have at least one good glue gun. I don't like to use glue guns, but when you use them, having the right one comes in handy. So you can see I'm looking on the inside, and you want to make sure that there is no glue all over, because that's when it doesn't look, as professional, or my word is polished, when you give it away as a gift. You want it, now nobody's going to see this outer area, so you can get as sloppy as you want on the outside area. Nobody's going to see it, but you don't want it to see on the inside. So all we're going to do is add liquid glue this time to the outer area, and then add it to the penguin. Okay, I want to make sure that this is facing the bottom and it goes between his footsies. And then we're going to lay this right in there, and foolproof. It fits beautifully. So you just want to take a second and hold it, especially around that bottom, because you will see that sticking out if you don't hold it down. Okay. It looks good. Even on this side, you can see it. It fits perfectly under his eyes. And if you fit it the way it should and it's touching that bottom, it's going to fit snugly. And again, foolproof. Foolproof. That's what we want in these designs. Foolproof, so that anybody, even a child, can put this together if they're shown how. Now, what we're going to do is attach it to the body, and then we'll be able to open up our design. It's still beautiful. It's still opening the way we want. So I'm happy with this. And keep testing this every once in a while, because as the glue dries, you want to make sure, because I did put a bunch of glue on that brad, maybe that gets stuck somehow. So just be careful and keep testing it. Let's set this aside. Remember, when we are gluing things, we first of all make sure it's fitting the correct way. And the second thing we do is always glue the side that has more holes. This has more holes, so this is the side that we're going to glue. That way it will fit. Now, what I'm going to do, I am going to glue everything together, but I am going to be a little cautious of getting too close to this area, because I don't want it too snug where it's going to make it difficult to open and close. So got my glue. Let's add the glue on here. So hopefully you can see that I'm trying to give you reasons why I do things, not just this is what you're going to do, but I have a method and a reason to my madness behind it all. And sometimes it is a little mad, but there's a reason behind it. And it's usually because I made mistakes doing it other ways, and this is what worked the best. I am being generous with this glue, because I do want it to stay, because I'm predicting that this will be handled a lot, especially by a child. Okay, once again, we're going to match it up at the top with the tuft of the hair, and everything else should fall into place. And once his arms and body are where you want it, seal his eyes down and then hold the bottom down just to seal those outside edges. And give it a minute to dry. All right, now we have him put together, and we just want to do a little test run to make sure that opening mechanism is working the way we want it and that it's not too tight. So you can see it's a little more snug, but I'm just going to play with it a little bit just to loosen it up. And you can see the handle, the more I work with it, it is loosening, and the handle is working just fine, and it's pretty easy to open. So what happens is it gets a little snug if you get the glue a little too close and just crunched together. So that's where the gasket can help it by giving it some room and giving it a little easier flow, but it's working fine. Don't play with the handle too much. You still want to give it some time to dry because it hasn't had that much time yet to dry. But he's looking good, and we're going to get going onto the next area where we're going to put the backing on and the lights. Okay, to show you how to do the lights, I'm adding this from a previous video. So the first thing I'm doing is setting up the lights and the metal on the bottom, which I'm using some just gold paper, and I'm setting it up like a factory. And in order to do this efficiently, I'm going to use a tool called a jewel picker that has some wax on the end that helps pick them up really easily, so I can add the glue and just bop it right on there. So I'm going to add some glue to the bottom of the lights, and then just again really quickly pop, 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 and put that gold right on there. Once all the lights are glued, I'm going to use this jewel picker and then just put that right into place, and you're going to see how quickly and efficiently I can do this. So on the one end that has the wax, I place it on there, and the other end is like a stylus where you can just kind of like move the little piece of paper in place to where you want it. So again, you can see how quickly this is working, and without this tool I would not have been able to do it as quickly or efficiently, and it would have had a lot more headaches involved. So I have a number of different colors that I'm using to make it festive. You can use all one color, but the one thing you want to do is keep in mind to keep the colors separate. So I'm going to put red all on the outside, and then you just want to go like red, green, blue, and just keep them to where they are not, the same color isn't next to each other. Okay, once again, I'm going to use my jewel picker, and I'm going to start with the red, and I'm just going to put them on each on the ends and then one in the center. Now up at the top, I'm going to put one blue and one green, and then I'm going to separate it and put a blue at the bottom as well, because you got to do what you got to do to separate those colors. So perfect. It's ready to go and to be attached to our penguin. So I'll show you that part next. Okay, so we are ready to add the lights. So we're going to focus on putting the lights down on the bottom and attaching them to his arms. And you can also add some lights to the top and the bottom and kind of wrap them up as if he's tangled in the lights. So it's just a whole lot of fun that way. Super cute. But let's just focus on adding the lights on the bottom. So let's grab our glue gun for that. So to add our lights, we want to grab our glue gun. I already sealed it to his arms, but I'm going to add a little bit of glue right under that middle red light and just hold it there for a second. But you want to use hot glue for this, even though I'm not a fan, because the liquid glue just won't stick too well on the plastic ball. All right, now that we have his lights on and he's looking really snazzy, let's finish up with the card backing. So let's put the back on first, and I'll show you how to do this. So the first thing we want to do is fold on the score lines here. So this is where you're going to need your scraper tool. So if I line up the backing to the penguin and it's facing in the right direction, the top score line is going to face away from the penguin and the bottom is going to face towards the penguin. And what it's going to do is create a triangle shape that basically holds him and supports his body up. All right, now the bottom tab, what we're going to do is fold on the score lines and then we're going to attach it to the little slits that you see in the card bottom. And the reason we're doing this, now we're not going to glue it, but the reason we're going to do this is so that when we do attach it to the penguin, we're going to know exactly where to line it up. So it's not going to be lined up crooked. It's going to be lined up exactly where we need it to go. Okay, so you can see how it's creating this triangular shape. And so in physics, it's going to naturally hold up the weight of the penguin. All right, so let's glue the top right at that score line. That's where we're going to add the glue and then attach that to the penguin. All right, now that we have the top attached, the bottom tab is going to fit perfectly and go exactly where it needs to go because it's already attached to the backing. So all we need to do is add some glue around the inner edge of that. Now the corners are going to stick out because the bottom of the penguin is rounded. So I'm just going to add glue to the inner area and then attach it flush to the bottom of the penguin. And I want to make sure that it sits flat and flush because we want that bottom tab to be what hits the ground because that's what's going to stabilize the penguin. Now, one of the things I would recommend is adding a little heavier cardstock, such as 110-pound cardstock, to make it a little sturdier to hold the weight of the candy when it's added to the penguin's belly so that it doesn't fall over. So the card backing is optional, but it really makes a great gift to put a nice little message inside. And it also creates a memorable gift if you're going to give it to a colleague or somebody who would put it on their desk or table so that they can look at it every time with their favorite candy and just get a smile. So our penguin is all ready for the holidays, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have a ton of fun making your own penguin for somebody special. Have a great holiday and see you in our next tutorial. Bye-bye.